Hello everybody and welcome to the Quilters Apothecary. Today we are going to talk a little bit about flying geese and flight path. Now the tutorial that we're going to be doing is how to use both. We're going to use our inside geese and maybe some circles as well to intertwine through the geese, and we're going to create a flight path, and then we're going to follow that flight path and create this wonderful quilting design behind me. So let's go over to the drawing table first, and then we'll go to the machine second. Okay, so the very first step is to take whatever surface you're going to be doing your flight path design on and either lay it out flat on a floor or on a large table. You can tape it as we have done here or not, it's up to you, and audition a couple of different paths that you want to work on. You know, my favorite way to do this is actually to use our iPad and then take a photo of the quilt or the art piece that you want to do this on, and then use your stylus and create different paths so that you can then look at them and figure out which one works best. But if you don't have access to a tablet, then obviously you would use this method. So let's go ahead and try a few different paths for this piece. Okay, for my first path line, which would be my main path line, I think I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to come down, do a nice big loop, come under, and then I'm going to head diagonal right down here to the corner. And that's going to be my main line. And now I want to create a secondary line. For my second guideline, I'm going to bring it down, twine it around the first, curve up, and then head right out of the piece. So we now have our two flight paths already drawn out. And again, we could change this at any time. So the next thing I want to do is to figure out our underlap and our overlap before we get started. There's nothing worse than you're on the machine, you've got things quilted, and then you realize, oops, that was supposed to go under rather than over. So for the first loop, the line that we made, what I'm going to do is directionally, I'll have the arrows coming that way, and I think this first loop, as it goes over and around, it'll go under when it comes around counterclockwise. So I'm going to go ahead and put my arrows, with this being the primary line, and then it's going to come under here. So I can go ahead and start here, and when I come down with my geese, just keep following that line around, and then coming under and having it underlap here. Now, as I come towards the middle, I just keep that main arrow going. Now we need to consider what's going to happen with this second flight path line. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it, and I'm going to start up here in the upper right, and I'm going to come off that edge rather than off the top edge, and come down. Come down, I'm going to go over my geese path here, my main line. And then when I come here, I think what I'll do is I'll go under. So I'm going to go ahead and put my arrows on top, knowing that that's the main line, and then this line is going to go under. And then over here, I won't put a line, any more arrows here, so I'll know that that's the dominant line there. Okay, and then once we figure that out, then you can kind of look at the space if you want to plant other shapes behind. Now we're going to take this over to the machine and we're going to load it, and I want to show you a tip, especially with a piece this big, on how I would go ahead and pre-baste it rather than do any of the background work first. So let's go over to the machine. Okay, I have my stitches locked. I have the ruler, which is the larger of the inside flying geese. I have my chalk line ready. Now with this ruler, it's simply just like a puzzle piece. So I very simply take it apart, and we make sure to test all of these so they go together and come apart very easily. Now I take that, go right around the hopping foot, slide my puzzle piece back in, and I just like to use a little bit of our red ruler tape and put it right over the puzzle piece. That keeps it a little more stable. And now I am ready. So I'm going to line up the ruler. I think what I'm going to do, let me bring this machine down just a little ways, right to the line, as you can see here. Now when our ruler is laying down here, what you're going to see is you're going to see a half mark with an arrow right here. And then of course up at the tip. And that's what you keep right on the line as we turn. So I'm going to line that up, make sure that my arrow is right on the chalk line that I've made. Start my machine, up, back, up, and then I'm going to work my way around. Now I'm going to go forward, back, forward, and then I'm going to come down. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go a number 4 on the very last one, and that's going to bring me right back up to the tip. And now you simply bring the ruler forward, you reline it up so your center line stays on that chalk line, you turn the tip or the nose of the goose to get right on that line, and now you're perfectly lined up, and you're going to repeat that process. 1, 2, 3, 4, and again, the reason I like to thicken my line is I want this to pop out when I do my filler around the geese. So a nice line, and actually what I have in right now is metallic thread, is going to make this pop and look beautiful. You don't have to do multiple lines. If you don't want it that thick, then very simply you would just go once, around once, but you will have one side that will have a little bit of a thicker line. That's why when I do the 1, 2, 3, they're all consistent. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to continue this all the way down the line. So come back up to the tip, pause, pause, slide the ruler, keep the arrow lined up, and now I'm going to work my way right around that curve. Now towards the back, close it off, head back up, back again just to keep it a little bit thicker. Come up toward the nose. I'm right at the nose now, and again we're going to slide our ruler. We're going to make sure that our back arrow lines up on that chalk line, the nose lines up on the chalk line going forward, and then again we do our back. Come forward, go back again, make sure you connect, so I always just slide back and over, back, up, thicken that line, and then again we're going to travel our ruler, line up our arrows, and continue on. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this one off, and I'm going to replace it with a size smaller, so that I'm going to have my flying geese going from a large goose into a small goose all the way across the quilt when I go through the swirls and the twirls. Okay, so now I'm going to continue right around this curve with my flying geese. When I get over here, I'm actually going to outline these with a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to stop about right here, outline this section here with my 1/4 inch line just to kind of highlight it. And then we'll go back and finish and tuck those right under. The other thing I wanted to show you is I have not been taking out my basting stitches. Now, even with the thick line, until I go in to do my background, I'm just going to leave this here and I can still snip. And you can kind of see here, if I snip here and I'll snip here, how I can very simply just pull 2 stitches and I can pull that stitch all the way from here over and it comes out really easy. There we go. So now that came right out. So we're going to continue on. Okay, so I've rolled the machine, I'm heading down with my flying geese, and now I'm going to underlap under this main line of flying geese. And the other thing that I wanted to make sure that you see is I actually like to do a 1/4 inch around the whole thing. So I'm going to grab a ruler that has a 1/4 inch measurer, put on my glasses here, come out, and I'm going to go ahead and outline a 1/4 inch around the geese with whatever marking tool you like to use. Again, I tend to like this Bowen whenever I'm going to mark on color because it wipes right off, but yet it stays until you wipe it off, which is what I like. So I'm going to come down there, and then I'm going to head up, line it up, again 1/4 inch, and that outline is going to pop those flying geese. That. And then we're going to head back the other way, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to go ahead and quilt that line. Again, I'm going to pop that, make that a little bit thicker, just like we did the actual geese. And then when I underlap, it's going to give it such a wonderful visual effect, as we saw at the very beginning of this tutorial when you saw this complete. Come around, slide in, and again, as I'm working my way around, that's all that's going to hit there. So I'll go ahead and I'll mark this portion as well all the way down so that that's done and out of the way for our next step. And then we'll come back and we'll slide those geese coming down and under, right under there. Okay, so now what I've done is I went around a 1/4 inch, the flying geese, and I have filled in around there so you get the idea of what it's going to look like when it's done, aside from whatever we're going to do with the background. So our next step is going to be bringing this line of geese under the main line. So what I'm going to do is line up my ruler. Now remember, this is the thick line, and I got to tell you, sometimes it's the easiest answer that's the best. I'm going to lock my stitches here, go up to where I have the thick ditch. I'll travel the thick ditch to the next part, over, all the way around, and so I'll get partial geese, and then I'll continue moving under without actually quilting, just to make sure that when I come out this side, I'm going to end up in the right place visually when you're standing back from the piece. So let's get started. We're going to take a ruler, we're going to slide it forward. Again, remember, we're going to line up that arrow behind the foot right on the chalk line, and this one is going to line up right on that chalk line. And actually, let me darken that just a little bit more there so we can get a better view. Okay, so now, nose to tail, I've got that ready. Back and forth. Come over to the corner, I come up a little bit. And actually what I'm going to do is come right up to that line. Back. And I actually, if I'm coming close to another section like I am here, I'm going to thicken that line just a little bit more so it pops a little bit more. Forward, back. All the way up to the nose of the goose. And now back to that line. That way it falls right underneath. I'm going to stay at the nose. I'm going to slide the ruler forward. Again, I'm going to line up the back arrow, line up the front arrow, curve it a little bit. I'm going to look here. This is tucked under, so I don't need that. But I will need this line here and then have it stop and come over there. It's not something that you're going to notice up close, but if you're standing back looking, which is where most people will be, they're going to see it. I find with this type of quilting, you really want to pay attention to the details. Okay, now I'm up there. I'm going to stop, needle up. I'm going to slide right to the tip. Remember, I locked those stitches back there before I stopped. Now I'm going to slide my ruler. That's where I would be. I would come to the tip. I'm going to line it up, but I'm not going to quilt it. Except for this little corner here. So I'm going to slide over. I haven't unlocked underneath. I'm going to just start my machine back and forth. That's going to lock me. Over, back. That's that nice thick line. Lock my stitches there at the end. Needle up. Slide over. Will I get enough of a tip to count? Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to lock my stitches back and forth here. Just put that little tip in. Needle up. Slide forward. Slide the ruler. I can always go trim those tails after I'm done, underneath and on top. Slide, make sure that I'm lined up here. Start my machine. Put in that last little tail right there. Lock. Stop. Needle up. Slide down to the snout. Come down. Line up that back arrow, line up that front arrow. Now I have a tip over here, so I'm going to slide over there, lock my stitches, and put that corner tip in. Again, remember, we're going to echo and fill around that echo, just like we did on the top. And so those little tips will pop. So now, again, I'm going to needle up, slide, slide the ruler, and I'm going to continue all the way around this line and on my way out from under. Slide the ruler, toe lined up with the chalk, back lined up. And I think on this one I can almost get a full one except for that bottom tip curving under. Come up, back, up, back. And I'm going to thicken that a little bit more just because it needs a little bit of a highlight to be seen once I get that filler around it. Come back, up, back, come back to the snout, slide my ruler, line up, and continue on and around. We have now hopped over to the second line, and we're going to follow this line using a different shape for this one. I think we're going to go ahead and use circles. I'm going to start with this bigger 3-inch finished inside circle, and then we will take that and make it smaller as we go down that line. Now, when I do this, I'm going to do the same thing. As I follow it, I line up the center of my circle to the hopping foot. I look at my chalk line and the other arrow that's down here. Just like we had on the flying geese, I line up with the chalk line. And I'm going to do the same exact thing. So I'm going to start. And I do want to thicken my line. Go right against the inner edge. Come around. And again, it's up to you how thick you want to make that line. Come around. Come around. Close my circle. Thicken my line. Come all the way back. And now I'm going to again slide my ruler. And then I'm going to complete that. I'm going to line up the center. Line up the arrow there, so it's right across the chalk mark, and I'm going to continue all the way around. Now for filming, obviously, we're having to turn the ruler some different ways, but I also want you to remember that we have a north, south, east, and west arrow here. So I can turn this ruler. If I am left-handed, I would be holding it in my right hand, but since I am right-handed, I would be holding it in my left hand. Now I can turn this ruler any way I want, and I have the arrows to follow the line, whichever way is the most comfortable for me. So again, now we're down to this one. I reline my arrows up. I'm going to come back around. Slide my ruler. Continue that third circle. And I'm going to go about 4 or 5 circles and then switch sizes again. Now what we're going to do is continue down, and I'm going to twine this in and out of the flying geese. So let's go take a look at what that looks like finished. Well, there we go, everybody. So I hope that alleviates some of your fears, if you had any, about how to use a flight path and the inside shapes to do different designs within the body, whether it be swirling around an applique or a centerpiece of a quilt. There's a lot of different ways you can use this, which I absolutely love. And also, don't forget to make use of those wonderful wide borders. You can utilize this same method inside of the wonderful wide borders. Have a wonderful day. Know you're loved, and take care of each other out there. How I can very simply just pull 2 stitches, and I can pull that stitch all the way from here over, and it comes out really easy. This is like one of those TV shows where it doesn't go real easy. Okay, cut! There we go. So I just pulled it out. No, that's not staying in. Take 465 million thousand.